Benchmark Business Sales and Valuations proudly presents the Meaning Business Podcast, hosted by Coudrey and Peter Spinda. This is the podcast for anyone serious about buying, selling, and preparing your business for maximum growth.
Got a little story,
Pete.
as always. Story time. So I've been involved in many transformation projects. And a few years back, I was involved in 3 separate retail transformation projects. And I met a gentleman whose business assisted with some of the implementation components of the transformation project. He walked the walk and talked the talk and seemed really legit. And we actually ended up engaging his business for each of these transformation projects. His team was fantastic. Very, very good at delivery, very good at customer service. And initially, everything was going well in each of these engagements. But what became very apparent was that they had a problem in the business. And the problem in the business was actually the business owner. He kept stepping in and he kept stepping on the toes of his employees, stepping on the toes of what we were doing, what they were doing, kept, trying to control everything too much.
Control freak.
And he was very much a control freak. And as a result, what ended up happening is that my client, who had engaged us to deliver on the transformation projects, were becoming quite frustrated and annoyed with having this individual run this part of the project. It got so bad that in one of the projects, we actually had to move them out. We had to cancel the agreement with him. We finished up the other 2, regrettably. And for the third one, we actually had to move them out and find another service provider.
Wow.
So fast forward a few months after these projects were finished, I was having a networking meeting with one of the largest consulting firms in the country with some representatives from them having a chat. And they said to me, listen, have you ever heard of XYZ company? And this happened to be that company. I'm like, yeah, I have. They're like, so what are your thoughts on them? I said, look, I'm going to be really honest with you. I'd never refer anyone to them again, and I'd never work with them again. They're like, really interesting you say, because we've had recently some experiences that we're not happy with either. And we need to decide whether we're going to continue using this company and whether we're actually going to do something about sorting some issues out they had with this individual.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward probably 6 to 12 months, and this business tanked, absolutely tanked. And business owner calls me up, and we were having a chat, and he said, haven't got any work from you for a while, and what's going on, and et cetera, et cetera. And I just sort of said, look, we haven't really been doing those sort of projects. We haven't needed your services. I didn't want to say anything because you know what? I just didn't want to have a bar of it. I didn't want to deal with the guy, and I never would send any more work to his business.
Okay.
Now, he had his head in the sand. He just didn't realize that his business was losing money, but he wasn't willing to accept and realize the fact that he was the cause of the problem. Throwing more money on the sales and marketing in his case, or more time in networking activities and asking for more referrals wasn't the solution, because he was the problem. And with each new piece of work that came into his business, he's just doing disservice to his customers because he wasn't looking after them, making it worse. So the reputation this business still has in the marketplace is very, very bad. And I guess that starts a really, it's a pointed start to our discussion here today about, well, what can you do when your business is actually
Losing money.
And we've got
because
to realize
every business at some point in time will be losing money.
Absolutely.
You can't always be making profit.
Absolutely. And we've got to go through those processes of understanding why. But I guess the pointed nature of that discussion is to say that first thing you need to do is you need to get your head out of the sand, and you've got to be willing to accept reality for whatever it is. And also that often a business loses money, not because something's happened in the market, but because of something's happening internally in the business. So sometimes it's a controllable factor that we can control. And imagine if we could teach a business owner like that, give them coaching and guidance, and they can change their methodology and mentality, how much better things could have become.
Yeah. But for people so what I thought we'd talk about today with losing money, I'll come back to what you just said, is first of all, you got to know it.
That's right.
You got to know where you're at. And if you are losing money or not, and because I'll like to come to the point later about how sometimes you think you're losing money and you're not.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of those situations. You got to know where you're at. You got to admit defeat if it's not working.
Yep.
You got to be prepared to listen and take advice. And you've got to understand, I think, and what we want to try and explain today is the different ways that you can think that you're losing money or really be losing money, and therefore what you can do about it. So what we want to talk about today is what you can do about it if you are or you think you're losing money.
Absolutely.
And that was the point of the story.
That's right.
So your friend, or not your friend, the guy, your colleague,
Yep.
he was losing money because he was the problem.
That's right. They had no issues getting the work in. And the reason they didn't have issues getting the work in is because, and I use the word luck, he was very lucky in the way that he started the business and when he started the business. Timing aligned perfectly for the marketplace because the marketplace was ready for the transformative services or transformation services. And he happened to be there at that time where there was a shift in the ecosystem and people wanted these sort of digital services.
So in hindsight, looking back, what could you have done or he have done to have fixed that problem and not be losing money?
Well, for someone like that, the biggest thing is ego. Really goes back to
often
ego.
very commonly the case.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And
he could have taken himself out of the business.
That's right. He could have taken himself out the business, put a manager in place, or better yet, he could have actually changed himself, which is a difficult thing to do, especially if he's a middle-aged man, had been there, done that, was already successful.
And if he doesn't acknowledge the problem, which I was number 2, admit defeat. Oh, sorry, know it.
That's right.
And be prepared to take advice. So if he was prepared to do those things, it would have resolved it probably.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think back to my first business, and one of the reasons that failed was because of my ego. And I'm happy to admit
So
because
actually, I want to, you don't know I'm going to do this, but Peter's had a lot of businesses. So can we just quickly go through the chronology? What was your first business? Was it the textbooks?
Yep. We were selling textbooks online and that boomed and that was very
So
successful.
university textbooks were
University
the first,
textbooks. We were the first online, to my knowledge, first online bookshop in Australia back in 1999.
And yeah, it's pretty amazing, Peter's story. If you ever get a chance to
Read my book.
read his book. Okay, after that, what was the next?
So during that, we played with other things. So we were importing medical equipment. We were also importing and reselling in stores sporting products.
Yeah, okay.
From there, we had an eyewear business, so importing eyewear from China and retailing them.
And none of this was online.
No, this is all well, the eyewear, the sporting products were all offline. Healthcare products, semi-online, some offline. I then had Pietro Gregori.
I was going to get to that one.
Silk tie and cufflink brand. So Pietro Gregori, Peter Greg. Greg's my brother, and I thought, okay, that's a nice sounding Italian name.
Oh, excellent. And do you still have any cufflinks left over?
I do. I've got cufflinks. I've still got about probably a dozen ties.
Oh, that's not many.
Silk ties.
Yeah.
We sold them online at the markets, on eBay, had them in stores as well. Then I started a recruitment agency.
It was one of the big ones, the medical recruitment.
That's
business.
right.
Yeah.
That went very, very well up until we had some changes in the marketplace. So that sort of moved on to the next stage, which was starting the consulting phase. And at that time, started the consultancy. Then we started a web development agency and digital marketing. Then it all got too much, sold off the assets of the digital marketing, and we've just continued with the consultancy. Now we've got a software business, got the consultancy, and we also do develop things on the side on an as-needed basis for clients. So
I just thought it'd be interesting for people to know that you're not just some nerd who's come out of university with an MBA.
No. And look, I do have the MBA. I've got an MBA. I'm doing my PhD. So that kind of that world for me is more for myself. It's got nothing to do with anyone.
You've been there. You've done it.
Yeah.
You've lost money.
I've lost money. I've made a lot of money. So it's, and I know what it's like to have a business that is losing money. And in fact, and this is going back to the first business, in fact, for a period there, we didn't know we were losing money. And I know those people who aren't in business don't understand how can you not know, but it just, when you're in the moment, when you're busy with the busyness, operational things, staffing, et cetera, it's very easy for months to go by if you're inexperienced like I was at that time. And I wasn't in the habit to look at my financials and challenge my financials and have a conversation with the bookkeeper or the accountant. And you think everything's going good and that you're in the positive.
Yeah.
But in reality, had we run the right sort of reports and understood how to read those reports, we would have seen that, man, we were going backwards big time.
So this is something that I thought was relevant for business owners about this losing money, this whole losing money thing. When I started in business, my second business in 1984, I think it was a service station in a place called Wollongong. It was a Shell service station at Gwynville, previously owned by Frank and Vivian Palmer. And my mate Alex and I, who are the two business owners, Alex is still my best mate. We got into the service station. It was our second or third. And we cranked this place up. We're trading 7 days a week. We opened the workshop up. We did everything, and the place was flying on. We had a lot of accounts, so anyone wanted to count, doctors, lawyers, they all had accounts, and we driveway service and our shop. We made our shop bigger, and everyone that came in, we checked their oil and we'd upsell them. And it was great. We were selling. We quadrupled the sales within 2 months. The place looked amazing. And when we looked at the bank balance, it was empty and was going down. We didn't understand. And by the way, bear in mind that it's only been in recent times that you can get on Xero and you can get a live P&L, right?
That's right.
In those days, we would wait. There was no BAS. So you didn't even wait till the quarter. We did these E.K. Williams day books, they were called, did this manual day book. Then you balanced your fuel losses and so on. But you didn't really know if you're losing money or making money, or you could calculate your profit. And we thought we were making money, but our bank balance was going down. We got to the point where we couldn't buy any more fuel, and we were wondering how we were going to pay the rent and what was going on.
And it's so common. I mean, we had the exact same thing with the medical side, with the textbook side of things. Put it this way, we launched a new marketing campaign, and up until then we were doing okay as a business. You know, I think the biggest month up until then was about $50,000 a month. We launched our campaign, and the next month, $372,000 worth of orders on our website in 1 month.
Wow.
And we're like, shit.
And
then the growth continued, and we're doing very, very well. But here was the problem. It caught us off guard because the growth was substantial. But by then, it wasn't just textbooks. See, what you just described is what we did online. We went from textbooks in one space to textbook to everybody. We went from universities to tapes to schools. We then expanded beyond that. We had CDs and CDs for our software. Software came on CDs back in those days.
That's right.
We were selling DVDs, music CDs, mobile phone plans. We were getting into all these different areas. And all we saw was, yes, the money was coming in, but we didn't balance the books adequately enough to understand.
Yeah.
And our biggest issue was we just didn't realize that our margins were really slim. Like on the textbook side of things, 5 to 7%.
Yeah, same with service stations. You're making 2 cents a litre.
Minimal.
So what happened with us, late 84, early 95, 85, a guy named Paul Devine, our bookkeeper, accountant, came along, and he said, guys, you're making money, but your debtors, we were owed so much money from our account customers, and our stock holding had gone up so much that the money we had gone into stock and debtors. We weren't losing. We just didn't have enough money to fund the growth.
It was sitting somewhere else. Yeah.
And this is where working capital is required when you're starting or growing a business. You need to have the capital to either sell things on account and get paid later, or to carry the larger stock inventory, or to acquire equipment, or to operate the business day to day with more wages or whatever it is. And we just didn't know that. And as soon as we knew that, we're like, right, okay, fine. If we stopped selling fuel on account and they put it on their bank card and we got paid straight away, no more liquidity problems. We had money back in the bank. Because I think we had $140,000 worth of money outstanding on accounts, maybe more.
Huge back in those days.
84, 85, that was a lot of money. So business owners can often think that they're losing money. And so my suggestion is the first thing you should do if you think you're losing money is just make sure that it isn't you are or are not losing money. Is that money, that profit, going into other areas like debtors or stock or work in progress? So we had another company, and their business was doing vinyl flooring for supermarkets, Woolies and Coles. Great customers, great business. Had a manager, full-time manager, and big crew. They had to go in at night, take all the shelves out of the store, put new floor in and reset it so it was ready maybe the next day or two later. But their accountant said that they were going broke. They were losing money. So they came to us and we said, well, we can't really sell it if it's losing money.
Mm.
And it took a while, but then we figured out, hang on, the work in progress, which was about $5 million, huge, wasn't on their P&L, wasn't accounted for. So they closed the business before we could get back to them. They weren't losing money. What they hadn't done was account for the work in
Yeah.
progress. As soon as the work in progress was taken into account
Changes
in the
numbers.
financials, they're making money, lots of it. So, yeah, so that's something I think not many people are aware of, is that you can be making money, but your accounts say that or your bank account, your amount of cash in the bank is going down. It looks like you're not making money, but you actually are.
Absolutely.
So we shouldn't use our bank balance as the barometer. That's the point.
Well, what it also highlights is that we should be having regular conversations with the advisors. So
Yeah.
whether it's a bookkeeper, an accountant, business advisors, have the regular conversations, analyze the numbers from multiple areas so that you understand the metrics within your business.
Yep.
That way you truly know what the situation is.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing is be aware of the hidden aspects of the business financials. So such as if you've got, let's say, 10 employees and 5 of them have been with you for 12 years, and you haven't accounted for long service leave,
That liability.
let's say you've got 3 of those team members have never been sick, for 12 years. How many days of sick leave? All those things you got to factor in,
Yeah.
because that can impact the bottom line very, very, very quickly
Massively.
when someone calls it in.
Yeah, good point. Can I just elaborate?
Yeah.
So quite often we saw businesses of many sizes from $100,000 to 20 million pretty regularly, and quite often a small business sale. Let's say this contract price is $100,000, might even be plus stock. The owner, if they haven't considered their entitlements, the employee entitlements, they might have to pay $20,000 or $25,000, and if they don't think about it before they sign that contract, they'll get the $100,000 at the sale, and they'll have to give $25,000 to the new owner,
That's right.
and they'll walk away with much less than they expected. So obviously, we try and talk to them about that at the outset. But if people like us, business brokers, aren't involved at the outset and they're selling it privately, they get a horrible, nasty surprise. And once they've signed that contract, you can't just back out.
You can't.
Sorry, I didn't realise I had to pay that money. It's too late.
That's right. That's why you've got to have the right advisors at all times.
Exactly.
Now, going back to a business where, let's say you're in a business where you know that you're losing money. Okay, so we know that, okay, something's happening. We don't know what it is just yet, but you're losing money. Now,
Expenses exceed income.
That's exactly right. And typically what we've seen and what I've seen is that when that happens, 2 things happen. First of all, people go on this massive cost-cutting exercise. Cut. Now, cost-cutting by itself is not a strategy. It's a fallacy. Yes, we've got to cut costs, especially when there's frivolous expenses and things like that, and we know that we've got some financial issues. Okay, we've got to control it. We've got to have our budgets and things like that. But it's a fallacy because it's not the full solution, because cost cutting doesn't address the real problem. It's like putting a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches. You haven't addressed the real problem. The other issue is that the other thing that I've seen is that people cut costs, and then the other thing that they do is they go on this revenue generation activity. They go, okay, got to get more sales in, sell. But again, it's a fallacy, because if the issue is as a result of poor customer service, and as a result of poor customer service, your customers are leaving, getting in more work is actually going to do even more harm for your brand and more detrimental to everybody on the team. So the best thing to do when you're in these sort of financial situations is, first of all, admit that you've got problems.
Yep.
And second of all, you've got to pause and truly assess the situation and understand, why is it that you're in that situation? List all the things that it could be, and then ask the why questions of why, until you get to the crux. And it could be that, that someone is a poor performer and causing problems.
Could be many things.
In front of house. Could be.
But you just said something interesting. You said pause. If your business is bleeding and you're losing money, the best thing you can do is slow it down or shut it off and rectify the situation. Don't keep trying to trade, because all you're going to do is keep losing money.
Because people think, I've got to keep spinning the wheel because I'm losing money.
Yeah.
No. This is when you pause. And it might even be that in that moment, you go away for a day or two and truly sit down, have meetings with your advisors, figure it out. And you know what? Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit of money to get advisors in and get the right advice. But that little bit, that's going to generate a lot more value if you follow that advice and if it's done the right way.
You just hit one of my switches. I've got so many customers I meet who don't want to spend the money on accounting or legal advice, and cost themselves a fortune by
it's
trying
incredible.
to do it themselves or get some friend or, some cheap backyarder to do it. Oh, it's so frustrating. I've seen something at the moment where these guys don't want to spend $5,000 on accounting to sell. They've got a business under contract. And the business is well over 10 million. And they're trying to do everything themselves. And the buyer is going to walk away from this deal because they are just so penny foolish and pound foolish and penny wise. Is that what it is? Penny wise, pound foolish. They're trying to save a little bit and they're costing themselves a fortune.
Yeah.
Happens a lot. But you just mentioned something about 3 times, Pete, which is advice, getting advice. So if your business is losing money, first of all, you should know if it is losing money.
Absolutely.
Second of all, if it's not working, you should admit defeat. And thirdly, you should be prepared to listen and take advice. But I keep thinking to myself constantly, why don't people get advice? Why don't people take advice? Sometimes it's because they just don't want to spend the money, but sometimes because they don't give advisors credit. And that's often because there's so many bad ones out there, unfortunately.
It's an unregulated cowboy industry.
Well, it's not just advisors. It's also accountants and lawyers and professionals. There's just not a lot of great ones out there. And if you get a great one, you want to hang on to them. So
Problem is, a lot of people don't want to give people the chance. And I've had that. I've faced that even in the past couple of months. We've had people come to us. And I've had one particular gentleman who's actually engaged us and we're working with him at the moment. And he says to me, I don't want to do this, this, and this because the other 3 advisors that I've worked with over the past few years haven't delivered. And so therefore, I'm afraid that you're going to be like that. It's like, and that's the problem that we've got.
Yeah.
We work in a space that is unregulated. So advisory industry is not regulated. And I do actually want to set up the body in Australia for the advisory space to put in place some regulation. The other factor is that unlike buying a car, so you want to buy a car, what do? You can go to the car yard, hop in, you can drive it and you can feel it. Advisory can't feel. I can say that we can help you with this, that, or the other. How are you to know? And even if you talk to my clients, I can give you testimonials. Some people will go, well, that's great, Pete, but you've handpicked them. You're never going to give me ones that never worked. So they're the challenges that we face. And unfortunately, for those business owners, they're not doing themselves a favor because good advisors can absolutely turn things around and make a massive difference.
When you get a good one, hang on to them. It's like a good doctor or a good dentist. You get one, you don't let them go. Because a good doctor will be proactive. A good doctor will diagnose things properly and you'll live a longer life.
And there's a word that you use, diagnose. So this goes back to one of the recommendations that we've got is that get your head out of the sand, pause and assess. And assessing the situation in your business is the diagnosis. Diagnose your own business. And, it's like saying, okay, someone might have a particular illness, they're coughing. Okay, well, one might say take some Strepsils and that'll settle the cough down. But the true diagnostician will go, okay, well, why are you coughing?
What's the cause?
What's the cause? What's the underlying cause? And what's the underlying cause beneath the underlying cause to get to the root cause?
Not just going to patch it up.
That's right. And so if you're serious about your business, you self-diagnose or better yet, get the advisors on board and get them to assist you.
Which is where I wanted to finish this session by saying, it doesn't matter whether your business is losing money or making money. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you get someone to come in and look at your business and appraise it or assess it or do a diagnostic on your business, you can only be better off.
Absolutely.
So why wouldn't you do it?
Absolutely. Well said, Bruce.
Thanks, Pete. And thanks for everyone for joining us on Meaning Business. See you next time. So people often ask, how's things going? What's the market like at the moment? So we're halfway into 2024 now. And the year really started off with a bang. It was one of the best years we've ever had. But I'm noticing it's starting to slow down now. It's definitely slowing down more in Melbourne and Sydney than other states. Perth and Queensland are really strong. Queensland's been really strong. So right now, halfway through this year, we're on track to exceed our number of settled sales for the year. And we've got about just under 600 businesses listed for sale, which is about normal. The most interesting things, I think, which affect the market are supply and demand and value. So it's really crazy. I don't understand why that does it, but this has been the case for years. And I've only identified this by doing our state of the market reports every quarter. So what happens is you can have a sector where demand is high and supply is low, and you would think that value should rise, but it doesn't. And you can have a sector where demand is low and supply is high, and you would think that value would fall, but it doesn't necessarily. It's very weird. But so measuring those three things, demand, supply, and value, what I can say is that some of the things that have been strong performers are still strong performers. So the childcare sector is strong. Supermarkets is a strong sector. Medical is a strong sector. Dental is good. So there hasn't really been too much change there. But what's been interesting is that hospitality, there's heaps of people wanting to sell their businesses. There's still plenty, 40% of buyer inquiry across Australia, not just with our company, are people looking at hospitality. So despite the downturn, there's been a bit of a downturn in hospitality in Melbourne and Sydney. Hospitality still generates a lot of inquiry. And it's one of those things where there's a lot of supply and, demand is still pretty high, but supply exceeds demand. The values are still supported, weirdly. Strange, right? And, it's not that hard to go out and start a new one, but people are paying for existing businesses. So values in hospitality are being maintained. Value in transport is rising. And but overall, we can measure that buyer inquiry and conversion to sale is slowing down now at the moment in the middle of the year. We think it'll pick up during the balance of this year because interest rates are going to sort of seem to have plateaued, and that does have a bit of a knock-on effect. But right now, it's a bit of a quieter market, still busy. It's one of the busiest years ever. And we'll still have a great year at Benchmark, and we're selling pretty much everything we list. If we get four things right, price, know who the market is, get all the data collated, and we're proactive, we should sell every business we list. So, I can't say that, if those things are right, everything is selling. But what's really amazing is that that factor that I spoke about, where you can have low demand, high supply, and prices are still strong.
That's interesting. Love to dig deeper and understand what it is.
Who knows how that works?
Yeah.
All I know is we got to use it and take advantage of it.
And one question for you: have you noticed any changes in terms of the value of the transactions, the size of the sales?
Yeah, we measure that every Monday. Yes, the average transaction size is rising, which is interesting because house values have risen over the years, but business values don't rise with inflation. Business values are determined by the level of profitability. So a business making $150,000 a year profit in 1998 is still worth the same today if it's making $150,000 a year. So not like houses. But yes, the average transaction size is rising. I think it's because the Australian population is growing. We're getting deeper roots, if you like. We're a pretty immature society compared to Europe and the rest of the world. So as time's going on, the businesses are getting bigger and more substantial, and the transaction size is growing. So our average transaction size is getting up to close to $1 million now. Whereas when I started, if you got anything over $500,000, that was huge. So it's definitely changing, Peter.
So Bruce, tell me, you've mentioned this a couple of times, the State of the Market report. Where do we get it from? Where do listeners, viewers get that from?
So it's produced every quarter, and we break it down state by state and into departments. And it's available on the Benchmark Business Sales website. Or if you want to subscribe and you get on our database, you can get it sent to you every quarter.
Fantastic.
And what we find is accountants and lawyers really love the data that comes through, and they can see how their clients' businesses should perform in the market.
Absolutely. And in fact, talking about accountants, lawyers, bookkeepers, if you want a physical copy, go and see your accountant, bookkeeper, lawyer, ask them for a copy. If they don't have it, tell them to get in touch with us and we'll send them a bunch at no cost.